Hello and welcome to Test Taking Tactics, how you can skyrocket your score without knowing more. And this is part one of our two-part series. When you take any test, you're really being tested on two things. First is how well you know the subject matter, and secondly, how good are you at taking tests. In this series, we're going to get into the secret strategies of some of the world's best test takers. And when you understand this information, it will likely forever change the way you perform on tests from now on. In fact, I believe it will give you an unfair advantage. You see, students in every field have been using tactics like these to outperform their classmates, like you, for decades. Most people simply stumble across these ideas by accident. They become a permanent part of their scholastic arsenal. And it's surprising when you consider all the emphasis that public schools put on government testing that these tactics are rarely, if ever, taught in school. Right now, these strategies are being used by people who you think are smarter than you. That's not the case. Well, you may be struggling to get good grades. These so-called stars are acing their exams, regardless of their IQ or how well they know the material. Now, let me tell you a little bit about me and how I came to teach on this subject. My name is Matt DeMeo. I'm an author, speaker, and trainer on the topic of how to learn anything and everything faster and better and be able to remember it for as long as you need. In other words, how to be smarter faster. I got started way back in 1979 when I started a new job for a small chain of computer programming schools up in New Jersey. Now, back then, there was no such thing as people having computers in their homes. In fact, the whole world was running on what they used to call punch cards. The term when you got these in the mail with your bill was do not bend, fold, spindle, or mutilate, because these manila cards were what the computers would read. This was 2 years before IBM would release its first PC in August of '81. And so young people were hearing about this new field called computers, and they would come to my schools. But it was a difficult subject and we had a dropout rate. So I was motivated to look for ways to reduce the dropout rate in the school. So I began to study everything I could find on the subject of how to be a good student. And that included, how do you become better at taking tests? As a result of the successful series of courses that I began to teach, we not only reduced the dropout rate, I was also able to increase the job placement rate, because when my graduates would go on the interview, they actually knew what they were talking about. Go figure. And then an amazing thing happened. The companies who hired my graduates began to call the school to find out what we were doing that was so different that made our students perform so much better on the job. Well, at that point, I began to do speaking engagements for all sorts of professional organizations, colleges, universities, radio, on video, seminars. I traveled all over North America teaching these materials. So I began to interview some of the best and brightest students I could find to discover what some of their tricks and strategies and tactics were. And I used that information in addition to all of the books and audio programs that I had studied. And I discovered something pretty remarkable. In fact, when you look at these tactics and you look at them one at a time, none of these strategies were big ideas. Nope. In fact, it's the total opposite. Most of the tactics were tiny little things that by themselves seemed to be insignificant. However, when you combine them all together, they become incredibly powerful. In further episodes of this series, we're going to discuss specific strategies that will allow you to ace each type of test. I call it straight A strategies. This series is good for students of all ages, from grade school through middle school and high school, college and university and grad school, and for professional licensing exams as well. So if you're studying for your Series 6 and 7, or if you need to take your life insurance exam, or your real estate licensing exam, or the MCATs, please pay extra close attention to what we're talking about here as well. So I get into strategies for all different types of tests. True and false, fill in the blank, multiple choice, essay tests, open book and take-home tests. And so in further episodes, we're going to get into that. Now, in this first episode, you're going to learn how to skyrocket your score without knowing more. Now, what I mean by that is in this episode, you're going to get simple things that you can do before the test that will absolutely help you get a higher grade without knowing any more than you do now, without doing any more studying. You may not be able to use all of these tactics every time on every exam. So what? Use the ones you can. The more of them you use, the better grades you'll get. So sit back, get free of distractions, and please take some notes. So here's tactic number 1. Where to study. Notice I didn't say how to study, I said where to study. You know, there is one place that is absolutely, far and away, the best place to study for any test. No, it's not the library, it's not your room, and it's not the park. Nope, the single best place to study for any test is the room where you're going to take that test. Wow, now that's a surprise for some people. Now, why is that true? And by the way, there's been countless studies done to prove this. Well, there are actually 3 reasons that this is true. Now, you've heard about this idea of a home field advantage. You know it's true in sports. But did you know that it's also true about taking tests? The idea is to feel comfortable in the room where you're going to be expected to perform. Now, this is common knowledge. That's why in the theater, actors will have a dress rehearsal on the same stage in the same clothing where they're going to do the performance. There's something psychological that happens in your mind. And that brings us to the 3rd reason. And that is it makes these subconscious mental connections. Your mind makes these additional connections that will be useful during the test. All right, so that's your first tactic. Study in the room where you're expecting to take that exam. Your biggest enemy to success on any test is stress. So we're going to look at several different ways that you can reduce or eliminate stress before you take the exam. So tactic number 2, avoid stressful situations before the exam. So for example, right before the test may not be the best time to ask out that cute person that you've been attracted to. You may want to save that for another time. Or don't pick a couple of hours before the big exam to confront your roommate or your little brother or sister about, I don't know, snooping in your dresser drawers or going through your phone. Save it for another time, because you'll only wind up bringing all that negative garbage, all that negative energy into the test room with you. You don't need that. All right, tactic number 3. Just like the Boy Scouts motto, be prepared. Some things that you can do to be prepared. Visit the test room ahead of time. So if you're in grade school or middle school or perhaps even high school, the chances are you're going to be taking the test in the same room where you take all of the rest of your classes. So this may not be an issue. However, if you're taking a professional exam, the LSAT, the life insurance test, the real estate, Series 6 and 7, the MCATs, and so on, this is a very real consideration. A lot of times at college and grad school, they give you a specific place that you've got to show up to take the test. You don't want to get lost. That is stressful. So visit the test room ahead of time. You won't get lost. And you'll be able to relax, knowing it's one less thing for you to worry about. Next, get there early. Nothing is worse for your stress levels than running late. You know, Vince Lombardi, the famous football coach, used to say that if you came on time, you were late. He had something that everybody called Lombardi time. You had to be there at least 10 minutes early if you were on time. Look at it this way. Do you think fighting traffic, running down the hallway, sweating, being out of breath, and feeling out of control could have an effect on your attitude? You think? Well, can you see why arriving early will give you a better feeling of being in control? Absolutely. Give yourself more time than you think you'll need. Get up earlier than you think you need to. Leave earlier than you think you need to, because things go wrong. You may get stuck in a traffic jam, and now you're pulling your hair out or cursing or being all freaked out. It's not unusual for people to get hit with unexpected last-minute mini emergencies. You can't find your keys, or you forgot that you didn't fill up for gas and you need to stop and get gas, or heaven forbid, the dog pukes on your rug. I don't know. There's all sorts of little mini emergencies that can pop up at the last minute. But when you give yourself more time than you think you need, no sweat. Tactic number 4, eliminate distractions. Did you know that the seat that you sit in can have an effect on your final grade? What you want to do is you want to pick a seat that's free from distractions. So don't sit near the door, sit away from the door. If you're over by the window and you see there's a sports team outside practicing, or a bunch of kids playing, workmen are making noise on the street, sit away from the windows. If you have a crush on somebody in that class, don't sit near them. It's distracting. Also, don't sit too close to the air conditioner or the heater. In many of these older buildings, they have the air conditioner or the heating systems right alongside the windows, or maybe in the back of the room. Well, not only do they sometimes make a lot of noise, but suddenly you get too cold or you're too hot. You don't need those distractions. So pick a good seat. Wear the right clothes. Yes, even the clothing you wear can have an effect on your final test score. So you want to dress comfortably. You don't want to be too hot. You certainly don't want to be too cold. And you want to dress stress-free. What does that mean? Well, wear clothes that make you feel comfortable both physically and mentally. So you don't want to wear something itchy or that's scratching your neck or that's too tight and you're self-conscious. You know, years ago they did a study that got national attention where they had college students take their exams in their bathing suits, and the men consistently outscored the women, because many of the women felt self-conscious sitting there in their bathing suit while they took the test. Wear the right clothes, give yourself every advantage so that you are free from those distractions. Next, leave your problems outside the test room. How is worrying about that blemish, that zit, going to help you get a good score? Don't dwell on that argument with your parents or your friend, or that's not going to help you. So what you want to do is leave your emotional baggage outside the test room. Imagine this. You're actually going to pack your troubles in suitcases, and you're going to take those suitcases and leave them by the door. Don't worry. Nobody is going to walk off with your emotional baggage. It will still be there when the test is done, I'm sorry to say. Focus on doing well on the test. Put everything else out of your head, at least for a little while. You want to put on mental blinders, just like a horse will wear blinders during a race, so this way they are only looking forward and eliminating all of the distractions around them. You want to put on mental blinders and eliminate the distractions around you too. Now those are all little things, but all those little things become big things if you do them wrong. If you're distracted or late or out of breath or emotionally in the wrong place, it could be catastrophic to your test score. Now, tactic number 5, find out what type of test you're going to be taking. You see, you're going to discover in further episodes of this series that there are specific strategies you can use for each different type of test. So knowing what kind of test you'll be taking can help you to prepare. Just like a sports team watches films of their opponents before they play against them. The better you know what you're up against, the better you can prepare. Okay, Well, how do you find out what kind of a test you're taking? Well, there's only three ways I can think of. Number one, ask the teacher. They'll almost always tell you. I mean, after all, what's the big secret? But maybe you've got a paranoid teacher. There's some rule against it. Well, number two, ask for copies of past exams. This is common for college professors to make past exams available to you. Maybe your teacher will do it too. Ask the teacher. And if all that fails, judge from the past. It's rare for teachers to change their style from one marking period to the next. So take a look at what type of tests you've already been given and plan accordingly. Knowing what type of test you'll be taking can help you decide just how to study. Is this something that you need to have a really thorough, in-depth study session for? Or do you want to cram? In further episodes, we're going to even talk about different ways you can cram. We've covered a lot here in part one, so let's review. Remember, these tactics are not new. They are all proven. They are all being used by students that you think are just smarter than you. By themselves, none of these tactics are a big deal, unless you violate them. When you combine these tactics together, they become way more powerful than any one of them by themselves. The scientific term is called synergy. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Tactic number one was the best place to study for that test, the room where you will take the test. Now, there are three reasons for this. You have the home field advantage. It's like dress rehearsal, and you make much stronger subconscious mental connections. Remember, your biggest enemy to performing well on any type of test is stress. Tactic number two is avoid stress and stressful situations. Number three, be prepared. Visit the test room in advance. Get there early. Give yourself plenty more time than you think you'll possibly need. Tactic number four is eliminate distractions. We talked about the importance of why you should pick the right seat, wear the right clothes, and why you need to leave your problems outside the test room. Tactic number five, find out what type of test you're going to be taking. Three ways to do that. Ask your teacher, ask for past exams, and if all that fails, simply judge from the past. Now, looking forward to part two, you're going to discover how to program your subconscious mind for superior performance. I gotta tell you, this is a weird trick, but I promise you, it works like magic. You're also going to get an amazing technique that will free your mind whenever you get log-jammed. You know the feeling. The answer is on the tip of your tongue, but you can't quite get a hold of it. You know the answer, but it just won't come to you. So you're going to discover a powerful technique to activate your personal search engine assistant to bring you the answer immediately. You're also going to get the very best ways to take the information you've been studying and plant it deeply into your brain so that it's actually there when you need it. How's that for a concept? It is unlikely that anyone has ever shown you these super powerful techniques before. So I hope you'll join me for part two of test-taking tactics, how you can skyrocket your score without knowing more. Thank you so much for your kind attention. This is Matt DeMeo reminding you that everything in life that's worthwhile takes a little bit of work and effort. Always remember that the fastest way to get to the top is to get off your bottom. Thanks for joining me. Look forward to seeing you in part two.